This episode of the Luminaries on Deep in the Weeds is proudly supported by Deputy, rostering and timesheets without the usual chaos.
I love turning that key in the morning, coming through my back kitchen, even turning the exhaust fan on, getting the sourdough out, setting the oven up, turning the flat top on and working out what stocks I'm putting on for the day, and then going to my prep list and looking at what the boys have written up and going, well, we're going to do this, we're going to do this extra, we're going to do this extra, or whatever we're going to do. But I love everything about my job.
This is the Luminaries on the Deep in the Weeds podcast. I'm Anthony Huckstep. The notion of sustainability has moved way beyond a marketing catch cry, with many now accepting it's a vital ethos and approach for everything we do. And although this is only a recent revelation, there are some who have implemented measures, systems and approaches over their career and found ways to not only make use of everything in a considered fashion, but ensure business viability too. Melissa Palinkas is a chef and co-owner of Young George Bar and Kitchen and Ethos Deli and Dining Room in Western Australia. Melissa, how are you?
Wonderful, Huck. How are you?
Good. It's good to catch up with you. You've set a real benchmark without doing a song and dance about sustainability, but it's really just woven through everything that you do, and it has done for your whole career. Yeah,
absolutely. It's I guess it was ingrained in me as a young kid. Like, I grew up in an Eastern European background. My grandparents didn't waste anything, which spilt through to my mum and dad, obviously. And my mum still to this day is cooking the same way that she did when we were kids, saving everything and making sure she utilises everything. So I guess for me, moving forward, it's a win-win for everyone, because it's kind of like the way of the future is not wasting anything, but it's actually the old new, because we used to be like this. We used to cook and not waste, and then there's a couple of decades where things became very wasteful, and now it's like spun back around and people are not wasting again, which is really, really good.
Well, take us back to your childhood and some of the dishes that your mum would cook, and how that no waste sort of theory was in action in your family.
I guess we used to go to this farm called Wally's Farm every kind of fortnight, and Dad would go get a sheep and a whole sheep and chickens as well, and they'd buy these boiling fowls, and my mum would treat them like roasting chooks, which was pretty hellish. But my brother and I used to laugh because she used to keep all the chickens' feet. They came with heads and feet and all that sort of stuff. So she'd make stocks and make soups, and then Dad would buy the whole lamb, and we'd have mutton for days. And every single part of that animal would be wrapped up into the freezer, and every single part came out, including all the offal. We had a lot of livers and kidneys and all that sort of jazz when I grew up. I didn't particularly love it, but my mum grew up eating those things. So in turn, obviously, we grew up eating those things. So the kind of dishes that she used to do would be like things in one pot stuff, throw it all in. And, yeah, we'd eat a lot of things like that. But she used to also get creative and make pies, and using all the meats, using meat scraps and bits and pieces, and, yeah, and even down to the veggies. Like, she wouldn't waste a thing. Like, she would find a use for everything, even the carrot peels. Even she used to make ginger beer out of peeling ginger. So she used to peel the ginger and then keep the ginger peelings, and she'd ferment it and make fresh ginger beer, which was awesome.
Well, when did you first sort of get the lure of the industry and sort of consider chefing a sort of career path?
Well, to be honest, I never chose a career in cooking. I wasn't going to choose a career in cooking. It happened by accident. So I have a huge love of music and art, and I left school to pursue that and went to an art college, and I started DJing as well, and then I needed a job. So one of my friends worked at the Brass Monkey, which in its heyday used to be an amazing venue. It had a beautiful brasserie upstairs and a pub downstairs, and I got a job as a kitchen hand. And after about 2 months of working there, I realised that that's where I wanted to be. I always loved cooking. I cooked with my mum all the time. I cooked with my grandmother all the time as a child, and I used to cook the family dinners and help mum and dad out when I was, while mum used to work at night or vice versa. My dad worked at night. One of us would cook. But, yeah, chefing was never going to be a career of mine, and here I am 30 years later doing it.
What was it like for you in those first couple of years as a chef, sort of having had the learnings and experience within the family of sort of no waste and then working in a commercial kitchen? Was it surprising to you?
Yeah, I was blown away. Like, I loved every facet of it, and everything obviously in catering or in catering kitchens comes in giant sizes. So I was just blown away by the big A10 tins and the A12 tins and the giant buckets of prep you'd have to do and the amount of vegetables that would come through the door every day that you had to prep. And like when I first started cooking, we'd get 10 crates of chicken to bone out, and they'd just arrive in the kitchen, and like all the apprentices had to line up and do all the chicken boning of chickens and stuff like that. But yeah, it was just I was blown away. But I think like the head chef at the time, Bob Rawlins, he utilised everything. I remember him using every single part of everything that came through the kitchen. So it wasn't until later on when I went into other kind of types of cooking that I realised there's a lot of waste in it.
During your career, sort of particularly in those early days, what were the sort of real important sort of influences and mentors that helped shape your direction?
I follow a lot of American chefs, and in my early years before I owned a business or I was just coming up through the ranks, I think when I went travelling to the UK, I started following Jamie Oliver. Everyone follows Jamie Oliver. Jamie Oliver was in his heyday at that time. He was the naked chef, and I loved what he did. And my friend actually worked for him and Ben O'Donoghue at Monty's in Sloane Square. And so I used to look up to my best mate, Ryan, because he worked for these phenomenal chefs, and he shaped me into understanding ingredients more, because he was so passionate and I was just rising. I was passionate, but I didn't really understand it. But he taught me a lot along the way. And I guess I follow a lot of American chefs as well. And I think David Chang's probably one of my favourite chefs of all time. And that's because of how he uses ingredients and treats them really well, but also puts things on spins things on their heads as well. Who else? Sean Brock. I love the country heritage that he brings to like his style of cooking and his love for all ingredients from the south, like even down to a grain of rice, which is amazing, and beans. To like people like Grant Achatz in Chicago doing amazing gastronomy, like. Yeah, so there's a lot of influences in my life as I've been growing up as a chef.
You mentioned your time in the UK. Take us back there. Do you have any stories of that time and sort of the impact that it had on you? Yeah,
so I think when I went to the UK was when I fell in love with cooking, like fell hard for it. I'd never seen such beautiful ingredients. I'd never seen such colourful ingredients. I'd never seen such species of fish or meat and how it's treated. And even walking in the high street, I live in Clapham Common on Rectory Grove, and there's this amazing butcher, and he'd have like game birds hanging in the window. And I'd just walk past and be like, wow, this is like really opening my eyes up to everything. I ended up being head chef it was probably one of my first head chef gigs, and it was in a gastro bar, like a gastro pub in the UK. So it's one of those, those groups, and obviously there's an exec over the group and you follow their menus, but you're given like 3 or 4 things that you can cook yourself and come up with specials and stuff like that. So that's where I was like, wow, I'm going to get a chance to like use these incredible ingredients. And yeah, it was mind blowing, to be honest.
When you came back to Australia, tell us about that period of time. Were there challenges having sort of that experience that you'd had in the UK with those ingredients and that inspiration? Was it challenging to come back to Perth?
Yeah, it definitely was, because I felt like I'd just moved from such vibrancy to such non-vibrancy, and the food scene was not really happening in WA like it is now. Like now it's absolutely, it's blowing out the water. Like it's unbelievable the things that restaurants you can go to here now. But yeah, coming back was it was really hard for me to find a place, and really hard for me to work out where I was going to cook and what I was going to cook, and yeah, it was very, very difficult.
What was the turning point for you? Because your career has flourished as the food scene has evolved in Perth, and you've become a really integral person within that evolution. What sort of changed and headed you in that direction?
I wanted to do my own thing, and I've always wanted to do my own thing. So I went through kind of stages in my career where I didn't really know what kind of a chef I wanted to be. I just wanted to cook my own food. So I ended up in the Swan Valley at a microbrewery, one of the first ever microbreweries besides Feral Brewing in the Swan Valley. So I ended up there as head chef. I stayed there for 4 years, and I was just doing brew pub food because I'd come back from that kind of vibe, and I put my own little spin on it, and I started playing around with making charcuterie. I remember buying pigs off farms out in Newshay, and I get Vince Gareffa to come down. He's a bit of a personality butcher here, and show me how to make the prosciutto, and which was really cool. That's where I kind of like started doing that kind of stuff. And then I got sick of running a 350-seater and smashing out food, that I wanted to kind of refine that, and so I started working at the Cabin Small Bar, and that's where my career really took its turn, I think. I got noticed by Rob Broadfield, the food editor of the West Australian, and I was doing food. He called it dude food, but it was a bit dude foody, but I also did other food. But I started honing my skills into like charcuterie and no wasting and utilising everything, and that kind of was the starting point of my career, where everything just started, it slotted into place, everything made sense, and what I had to do to achieve it.
Well, tell us about that sort of drive and move into your own venue, and what sort of impact it had on your cooking.
Well, firstly, it's the creative side of that, like the creativity of working out what to do with X, Y, and Z after the primal is extracted, kind of thing. So what am I going to do with those stalks? What am I going to do with those pollens on top? What am I going to do with those leaves? The leaves taste nice. Can I make a stock out of that? What does that liquid taste like? I'll give you an example. We juice a lot of lemons in the bar, and limes in the bar, and we have all these lemon skins and lime skins, and I'm trying to work out what to do with them. So I actually make a soda out of them. It's like a bitter lemon soda, and I use xylitol instead of sugar so it doesn't ferment, which is a sugar-free lemon drink. But, like, the possibilities of what you can do are endless. So I think that creative kind of drive in me drove me into, like, wanting to work around sustainability and no waste, and educating people on how to actually cook and use everything.
This episode of the Luminaries on Deep in the Weeds is proudly supported by Deputy, helping managers and staff do their best work.
Hospitality is all about the connection. A business starts with passion, but gets bogged down with all the complexities that come with life, society, and rules. If you can simplify this mundane, then people can be happy and they can thrive. And when you have happy staff members and happy managers, your customers will sense it. They'll be happy, and you create that connection. that connection is hospitality is about.
For more information, go to deputy.com. Tell us about the creation of Young George. How did that come about?
Well, actually, it was Rob Broadfield who rang me up one day. I just had rang me up one day and said, "Do you want to own your own restaurant?" And I was like, I had just gone into the chair, right, and had both my carpal tunnels done, and I was sitting at home on some serious painkillers, and my phone rang, and it was actually St. Patrick's Day. It was. And it was Rob, and he said, how do you feel about owning your own restaurant? And I said, well, yeah, I'd love to, So he goes, well, do you want to come and meet me at this place? I'm going to give you an address. So I came down to Freo, and it was an existing business called Young George, and it's homage to, the name is homage to actually AC/DC, the Highway to Hell, and the Lightning Bolt, and, yeah, the Young Band. So... so they were doing pizza and street food, and I was like, oh, man, I'm not sure that this is my jam, and definitely not my jam. And they said, well, you can do whatever you like. And I was like, it was an investor and the chef. So I had creative reign in the kitchen, and, yeah, so I was able to create my own menu and do whatever I liked, which was awesome, and they all signed off on it. So that was how it kind of started, but then it just evolved and evolved and evolved because I was able to do whatever the hell I wanted to do. So anything I wanted to do, I was just doing. And so all my cooking dreams were coming true. And that's how I really started realising that my cooking style was not like anyone else's, and that I was just seeing so much potential in all the things that were in my freezer and my fridge. And, from a financial point of view, that's amazing, but also, showing the chefs what to do with, stale bread. You don't just have to make croutons or anything. We make crackers out of it. We can, do heaps of different stuff with that. We can make flour we can reconstitute it. We can make flour out of sourdough and make another pastry dish out of it. So, so it's the mind boggles. It's endless. It's absolutely endless what I do. So, and fun.
Are there any sort of dishes from that period of time when you really got to express yourself and explore your food that sort of speak of what your food was like then?
Let me think. Yeah, so I did this rice cake, which was inspired by a trip to New York when I went to the Samba in Momofuku in East Village, and David Chang had all these. He had these rice cakes, and they were really cool, but he deep fried them. So I decided not to deep fry them. So I cooked the sushi rice, rolled them into cylinders, and then I got fish frames and I scraped the fish frames back and made a fish frame tartare. So we were filleting fish, and I was like, well, this stuff's still on here. So not only can go on the top, but we can also use this meat once we peel it all off. So we get the back of the spoon, and the chefs would have to take all the meat off the carcass, and then we'd add the seasonings and stuff and put it on top of the rice. And everyone's just like, what the hell? This is amazing. I actually did a masterclass with that actual dish about 3 years ago it was for Summit Homes, and they wanted to do some stuff around no waste. And the lovely housewives were blown away, and they sent me pictures of them making the sushi rice cakes with the fish tartare on top, which was quite cute. So,
what were the challenges, and was there anything that surprised you about owning your own business that you kind of weren't aware of previous to that?
Yes, that it's hard. I'm not going to lie. It's hard. Everything sits on your shoulders. It's hard to explain. You try and do everything yourself to make it perfect, which in turn burns you out. And that's probably one of the places I have been many times. But slowly I'm paring that back. So a few years ago, I decided to get a head chef and relinquish some of my, control over what I was doing, because I was just burning myself out. and compromising my own like happiness. So myself and Suze were like, we're at a really good point now where we've decided that we've got to get that balance, because we've worked so hard for like 7 years in this business that, and the other business as well, not to mention, that it's now time for us kind of thing. And I guess the drive to be successful, and to get to that success is amazing, but then there's got to be some sort of give. Do I want to keep being this successful for the rest of my life, or can I like be happy in where I'm at with what I've done and kind of just go forward in a different way, but still have these successes and still have your business, but just work smart, I guess.
Was it hard for you to relinquish that sort of control over sort of the food and everything that you do?
Yeah, so I still, like at the moment, I don't have a head chef at the moment. I don't even have a sous chef at the moment. So before I didn't mind. Like I only used to give them like little, I'd let the chefs, they'd have to bring the dishes to me and stuff like that. It was hard, but I realised that I had to look at how they felt in a role under someone like me and when they wanted to create. And that's all I ever wanted to do was create my own food. So you've got to give them that to keep them interested, but they also wanted to learn. So, yeah, it was hard to let go, but I've let go a lot now. So I even let my apprentice come up with some great desserts and inspiring them to cook how they want to cook. And we go through it, we dissect everything. And so one of my apprentices come up with, he loves cooking pastry, or he loves pastry, and he's come up with 2 cracker desserts, and I couldn't really fault him. So why wouldn't I put him on the menu? So at the moment, like I said, I've got no sous chef, no head chef. And so I'm collaborating with my junior sous chef, and all my staff are 25 years old, but they're all amazing cooks. They're all absolutely amazing. So I allow them to experiment and cook the staff meals. And sometimes I go, that sauce is really amazing. Maybe we could put that with the fish. Make that sauce up for me. And so, so I've learned to let go a lot.
Ethos Deli and dining room really epitomizes sort of your cooking and your approach to sustainability. Where did that idea come from, and tell us a bit about it?
Right, so myself and Suze have this massive love for New York, and prior to COVID, we would go there every year pretty much. And I love there's something about a New York deli. It's so cool. On every single street, you'll see 2 or 3 delis. Well, it's a dying breed, actually, but the deli is dying over there. There used to be like 1,500, and now there's like probably 30 or something now. And a couple of the famous ones are still there. But, so I love the immigration, the migration of, like, you know, Eastern Europeans that came to New York and started these delis. They were all Eastern European, and it resonated with my background being Hungarian German. And so we kind of threw this concept together that we wanted to do something around that no waste platform where, like peasant style but not elevated, but utilising every single thing in the cooking, as well as this deli concept as well. So, which was also with my nose to tail charcuterie. So it sounds a bit of a mess while I'm talking about it, but it all comes together in the way that we wanted a deli and we wanted a dining room that reflected like the food of nose to tail, root to shoot, and utilising everything, as well as using sustainable practices in our kitchen, eliminating plastic. We use wheat straws. I mean, most people these days go for all that stuff now because they realise the importance of sustainability, because we're not going to have a decent planet if we don't start looking after it. But yeah, so that's basically it.
You've been fascinated with charcuterie for a long time now, and it's obviously at the core of what you're doing at Ethos Deli as well. Tell us a bit about making charcuterie and sort of what's required. Do you have a favourite that you've created?
To be honest, I love to make all of it, but I'd probably say one of my favourites would be capicola, which is basically the pork neck that's stuffed, marinated and then cured, then marinated, then stuffed into sheep bungs and then aged in one of our curing chambers for like 3 months. But I love all aspects. Like I'm about to make mortadella today for the deli. And, yeah, so I guess, I don't know, there's something really satisfying about utilising, we utilise different cuts of meat off the whole carcass that you can make charcuterie out of that people aren't making charcuterie out of. So we use, like, the rump of the pig and we make something called rumpetto because that cut is usually either minced down, but it's got a beautiful cap of fat on it and it looks like it could be like, I don't know, culatello or something pretty cool. So we all the pig's legs that we have we make into rumpetto. Yeah, I love all of it. I can't explain it. It's just like I have a real love for making charcuterie.
You're in business with your partner in life as well, Susan. What's it like working and living together and striking that balance with two really successful venues?
Susan and I are like so yin and yang, but so right for each other at the same time, and we find it very easy to work together because we can ESP each other, honestly. It's hilarious. And we both know what we're thinking and we both know it's crazy. Working and living together, and it obviously has its times where it's tough, and it's usually one of us is going through something like she doesn't have any staff and then I'm fully staffed, so I'm okay, or the other way around. At the moment, it's me, no staff, and she's okay. But last week or the week before, it was the other way around. We just get through it together. We always encourage each other, try and help each other where we can, always keep the communication lines open. If she needs something, I will always be there to help her because I work up at Young George and she works down at Ethos. So if she needs help, I will always go up and help her. If I need something, she'll always come down and help me. But really just, I know, teamwork makes the dream work, doesn't it? So in life, as life partners, as well as business partners, as well as, teamwork's everything. So communication, teamwork.
You mentioned a bit earlier how much the food scene has evolved in Western Australia in the last sort of decade or so, and you've been a huge part of that. Tell us a bit about food in Western Australia at the moment and kind of where it's at.
The scene's exploding. There's new places. I don't even know how because we've got no staff over here. There's a new place opening every second week. Do you know what I mean? But it's going from strength to strength. Like the quality across the whole platform of our dining scene is amazing. Like it's all about everyone's using like super uber cool ingredients that are completely local to us, indigenous to us. Obviously, we're landlocked at the moment, and we can't get anything from you guys. So I think a lot of people's approach has been like using local sustainable produce over here. We are lucky in that we have so much of an amazing food bowl in Western Australia where we can grow whatever we want at all times of the year in any season. So I just see a lot of seasonal, a lot of utilising secondary cuts now as well, and people also taking the simple is best approach.
Sustainability is on the sort of tips of everyone's tongue and a real focus of everyone, but you've been doing it for the majority of your career. What sort of advice would you have for those in the industry that are trying to adopt and change old habits and have sustainable businesses moving forward?
I'd say look at what goes in your bin for starters and tell me that it doesn't make you upset to see what you put in your bin. Like I haven't touched on this yet, but I think one of the biggest things is fine dining is one of the most wasteful dining. What is it? Not dining. one of the most wasteful types of cooking. But I would say look in your bin, and if you're happy to throw out all that stuff that you could actually get creative with, or also think about our planet and what is required from us as an entirety to keep our planet from going backwards. What else? I think for me, I would say to start using less plastic, start using crates to get your fruit and vegetables in with. Ask your fishmonger to just use the crates that they get the fish in with no lining, which I do. So start small, just going to your suppliers firstly, I guess, is the biggest thing. And most of them will do that for you now because a lot of them are championing sustainability and sustainable practices within their product. I know many producers that are completely and utterly down that road. But it is the way of the future. So just start with little small things like that. Get the wheat straws. Don't use the plastic straws. Use biodegradable coffee cups that you can throw away or that can be compostable. Just implement little things.
WA, as you sort of mentioned about sort of being landlocked at the moment, has had a little bit of a different experience as the rest of Australia in regards to hospitality, but not without its challenges. What's some of the positives to come out of this situation, and how do you see the rest of the year?
The positives that have come out of the situation is we've been able to sustain and not go backwards. We've been able to live quite a free life, and hospitality in itself has been quite booming. And without all these lockdowns and stuff, we've been able to pay our rent and pay our staff. And what I'm seeing over on the East Coast absolutely petrifies me. And a couple of my friends are working for groups and stuff like that, and they're just bleeding money everywhere. And as a small business owner, freaks me out about that. But in the last couple of years, we've been very, very lucky to be able to go out dining, not wearing masks, and move around freely. But we know it's coming, so and it's prevalent in the community now. Only a very small amount. Obviously, you guys see the statistics, but people are definitely scared of it. But I think, going forward, we just need to rip that Band-Aid off and get through it. The quicker we get through it, the quicker we can go back to normal. As much as I'm petrified about it, it just has to happen.
Your influence in WA is amazing. What do you love about what you do?
Everything. Everything. I love walking, turning that key in the morning, coming through my back kitchen, even turning the exhaust fan on, getting the sourdough out, setting the oven up. I love turning the flat top on and working out what stocks I'm putting on for the day, and then going to my prep list and looking at what the boys have written up and going, well, we're going to do this, we're going to do this extra, we're going to do this extra, or whatever we're going to do. But I love everything about my job. Probably produce. I'm very produce driven. And obviously I like to look at every single part of that produce and work out what I'm going to do with it. So everything about my job I just love, and I wouldn't change it for the world.
Well, you're an inspiration, Melissa, and it's been an honour to have you on the Luminaries today on Deep in the Weeds to hear just a little bit of your story. Please keep in touch, and we'll catch up again soon.
Great. Thanks, Huck.
This is the Deep in the Weeds podcast. I'm Anthony Huckstep. Stay tuned as we take a deep dive into the lives of the incredible people who ply their trade in the food and hospitality sector. Special thanks to executive producer Rob Locke for making this all happen. Follow us on Instagram at Deep in the Weeds Podcast, or email us at podcast@deepintheweeds.com.au. Stay safe and be well.